You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night. It's well after 9 p.m. That's on me tonight. But where else would you rather be as a Steelers fan? And with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how you breathing tonight?
We'll just take one moment and breathe in that sweet smell of victory. Glad I'm sitting here and was not at the game because I hate breathing in that, stank of Ohio air. So, as Kyle says, it just smells like Jag.
Yeah, well, technically, isn't it Kentucky? I'm trying to remember. Are they the ones? Do they have their stadium on the wrong side of the river? I can't remember.
No,
maybe that's their airport.
Yes, the airport is, I believe, across the river. But I
gotcha.
think
So, yeah, couple things here. We're going to be getting into that sweet smell of victory pretty deep. We're going to do a couple things here first. First of all, I'm going to ask you a question because we might not have as many people with us here tonight. Because and that could be in regards to the question I'm about to ask you, which was the last question that was asked of Coach Tomlin in his press conference today, and it was this. So, Big Bro, so you're going to watch Hard Knocks?
Absolutely not.
That's right. That's the same answer. I love Coach Tomlin's answer. That's my answer as well. There's probably people who may be watching it now as they're in the live chat. Hey, and that's okay. That's all you. I've never been a Hard Knocks person. And I'm like, if something that important happens with the Steelers, I'll either hear about it or see a clip of it on X. So I'm not really worried about having to watch the show. So instead, we are here and we are together. Now, speaking of being together, just want to address the situation because as a lot of you may know, chances are you all listened to the Steelers post-game show on Sunday, and some of you also many of you have reached out to me like on Twitter or X or whatnot, and have already mentioned in the live chat tonight. This is another one of those tough shows for my brother and I after we as a lot of you were very supportive when we lost her mom at the end of September, and this past weekend, we lost our big sister, and that was a really tough one. It is, but there's some times that I'm really, really sad. And you know what I've been doing when I've been getting way too sad? I've been turning on hot Steelers highlights, and thank goodness there were a lot of them from this past game because I just try to do something to kind of make myself feel a little bit better. But just like when so many people have reached out to us in the past and say, hey, I was going through a tough time and you all just let me just kind of for an hour or so, regardless of which show that we have here at Steel Curtain Network, during that time, we could just kind of check out and be with our Steelers family and just listen to the Steelers and not have to worry about stuff going on. So that's kind of what Rich and I are doing tonight. This is our Steelers time to just kind of get away from everything, and but did also want to say thanks to everyone who offered their condolences and have reached out. Anything you want to say there, bro?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, yep. So just thank you all very much. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers. Boy, that was really something else on Sunday.
That was an interesting game.
Yeah, let's hit the one piece of news. Well, not the one, but the biggest piece of news from the press conference, and that is Coach Tomlin just didn't leave the door open or didn't just say how we'll see how this week goes. Coach Tomlin was pretty optimistic and out there, much more than he normally is, for about a player who's missed several games in a row now. And he says Alex Highsmith is on track to play this week. That's more blunt that we've actually heard it from him there. Did say Calvin Austin III is in the concussion protocol. Did say Corey Trice and Montravius Adams will have a chance to work their way back. I think Trice has to at least get back on the 53 this week. because of the 21-day window. I said I was going to count up those days, and then I never did. But that was the news. I thought that was pretty exciting.
Thought it was good. I mean, shoot, I don't remember who did the article today talking about the Steelers' health on the website.
I'm pretty sure that was Jeff.
Okay. Couldn't remember because I looked at so many different articles and I always look at who writes them and then I start mixing everybody up.
Yep.
You know, I mean, how great is it where the Steelers are, you know, knock on wood, with the injury bug right now, that they're not suffering anymore. I mean, how many times over the past couple of years has it really gotten bad at times?
Yes.
And right now, not too bad. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So if all goes according to plan, this will be the first game for the Steelers where they have their top 4 outside linebackers in TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and Preston Smith, because obviously Smith hasn't been here very long. It'll be the first time since week 3 that you had Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig available. Just going to be interesting to see if the Steelers do anything kind of fun and crazy with that. Hopefully we can see that.
Hopefully. We can see that.
Hopefully. So, you know what? Let's get into it. Come on.
Okay.
44 points. Okay. When the Steelers face the Baltimore Ravens in the middle of November, I was kind of like, you know what? This might end up being a bit of a shootout rather than your typical AFC North battle. It was not. The Steelers won the game without scoring a touchdown. Neither team reached 20 points. So to me, when neither team reaches 20 points, I call that a defensive battle. But this week was where we got what we thought we might have a chance to get in that Ravens game. And that was a shootout in the AFC North that involved the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we've seen them before with the Ravens and the Bengals and the Ravens and the Browns even. But this was one with the Steelers. And the title of the show today is The Versatility of the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers. It's really about they have 2 wins in the division. One was a defensive win. One was an offensive shootout. Does this mean that the Steelers are equipped to win both types of games and those in between? Now, we'll kind of answer that as we go. But did you really expect 44 points, even with 7 of them coming from the defense?
No. As proven by the fact that I did not predict the Steelers to make it to 30 points. So,
hey, I got to bring it up. You were a little bit disappointed last week when no one noticed. And I said, Rich, that's because your head was in the way. But here we go. Afton Ford says, I like Rich's tree. There you have your Steelers Christmas tree in the background.
I do.
Last week, honestly, I told you, like, Rich, I didn't even notice. I couldn't really see it. You can see it well tonight, and it was noticed. I just thought I'd put that out there for you.
Okay.
But yeah, you predicted the Bengals to win in the show last week.
32-29.
Yeah, because you thought they could score just enough points, so maybe the Steelers couldn't. And I can see that based on some of the questions going on there, but 44 points, that was a really nice performance. I don't expect them to put up 44 points all the time because I don't expect them to go up against a defense that's been struggling that bad. But I'm sorry, even if you have a struggling defense, putting up that many points is still significant.
Just nice to see they could do it.
Yeah.
You know, don't not that I want to see them have to do it all the time because they had to do that the other day to win. Nice that they could do it, but don't want to see them have to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny, but they said, Mason Rudolph had a good game against the Bengals last year too. You got to remember though, the Steelers didn't face Joe Burrow last year. This is the first they've seen Joe Burrow in a couple seasons. And the defense, to say that they struggled at times would probably be an understatement, but we'll get into the defense a little bit. How did you let's start early. Very first drive. we had the pick six. In the knee-jerk article, you said about George Pickens stumbling, didn't even mention the potential of that being pass interference. I thought it looked like pass interference right off the bat. What's your feelings on it now after seeing it back and everything?
Oh, it was, and I thought it might have been then. But if you go back and look at it, he stumbled prior to the guy hitting it.
Okay. My thing was, I can't say that he did for sure because he was juking him off the line.
Oh, you haven't seen the close up of it then. Because I caught it on a reel today. It was close up, and I was like, aha, he did slip. He planted the foot slid, which actually then, because of that, he dipped a little bit, and as he dipped, he put his head down, and the guy from Cleveland just was like, oh, you're moving that way. That's right. Yeah. Cincinnati. Just was like, oh, you're
Ohio teams.
No. He was like, oh, you're moving that way, and just continued helping him on his way down. And it's like, that should have been a flag.
It should have been a flag because it doesn't matter if he stumbled.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the quarterback does this, that, or the other. If you hit him in the head, it's still a penalty. It doesn't matter if the quarterback moved his head as much into your hand as your hand moved into his head. You can't do it. It doesn't matter if he lowers a little bit and that made you hit his head. It's your job as the defender to make sure you don't do it. That's the rules. Okay, like him or not, that's the way it's supposed to be. It doesn't matter if he stumbled. If he grabs him by the back of the helmet and pushes him to the ground, it's pass interference. But you know what? So they spotted the Bengals 7 points. It ultimately didn't matter. And really what mattered is, man, did they respond. They didn't let that phase them one bit, did they?
No, the only thing really ended up doing was, in the first half, seemed like they were giving up a touchdown, matching it, matching it, until late in the first half.
Yep.
But the biggest thing was they kept matching it.
Yes.
And that's what I thought was different.
You didn't get that in Indianapolis in week 4.
Yeah. So it was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Put it this way, it was. I got to the point in the first half where I just felt it didn't matter what Cincinnati did. The Steelers were going to be able to come right back and match and score, and they just kept doing that. And I was like, all right.
And I mean, how big was it that they held the Bengals to a 3-and-out to start the game? You're like, not only did you, because this has happened to the Steelers too many times this year. They get the ball to start the game, they go 3-and-out. So they do absolutely nothing. They do less than nothing almost. I guess you could have a turnover or something on the opening drive, and then the other team has a chance to get the ball to start the second half. That's kind of a killer. But that interception changed a lot of things. So the first 4 times the Steelers had the ball, they had a touch. It ended with a touchdown. Unfortunately, the first one was a touchdown in the wrong direction. Yeah. Kind of like you could talk about. I don't know if you saw this stat today. Last night, Jameis Winston. If you count the yardage of passes completed to both teams, he threw for more yards, the most yards in the history of an NFL game.
That's hilarious.
Because of all the return yards from his interceptions as well. So he had 400 some yards passing, and then a bunch it was over 600 yards.
He had 500 yards. He had 500 yards in the game.
Well, I can't remember. I didn't want to mess it up. I don't remember how much of it was passing versus if there's anything else, or offense. And that's why I just said I did see the stat. It was over 600 yards if you include the returns, which was ironic because I was getting crushed in our league in fantasy football because I completely played the wrong lineup, which was my typical lineup, and ended up coming back and winning because of 2 defensive touchdowns by the Broncos last night. But
So sorry, I was off.
Yeah.
He was just shy of 500 yards.
Oh, he was just shy of
497.
500.
497.
That actually sounds familiar. Yeah, when I saw something crazy like that.
Yep.
So, but it was, I know it was
497
over
yards.
600 when you included those. So you could even say, Russell Wilson, the first four possessions for the Steelers all ended in touchdowns. Just one was to the other team. But to come back, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. That was impressive, especially then after those 3 touchdowns, you get the ball back when your defense matches the takeaway. So you turned it over early. They matched the takeaway coming back. Now you only turned it into 3, but you still were able to get that takeaway, keep them from going, and get that field goal. All right. I know Jeff Hartman kind of went off on this a little bit on his winners and losers. I didn't feel as strongly about it as him. How did you feel about, once again, the Steelers' end of the first half? Because there were some people that after everything was still very upset with how the Steelers handled the end of the first half.
It was not as good as it should have been.
Yeah.
Could have handled that much differently and at least given yourself a shot or 2 at the end zone. But at the same time, you'd actually gotten the field goal to take a lead.
Yep.
Which I thought would maybe get you to the half. You got the ball back, got another chance at a field goal. Boom, get that one. So you go up 6 and get the ball coming out half.
Yes.
That I was okay with, because you say, oh, you know, from the 20 whatever couple yard line, you could take a shot or 2 at the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they also know that that's what you've got to do, so that would be kind of risky.
Yes, I agree. And it's not like the Steelers, things were better this game, but it's not like they're coming into this having the most red zone success recently, right?
Right.
When you got that ball, you had 2 goals in mind. When you got, what did they get it with? Like a minute, just inside the 2-minute warning. Minute 56, I think it was. All right? That's when you get the ball. You had 2 goals. Goal number 1, put points on the board. Goal number 2, don't let the Bengals get the ball at all. It was a game against the Bengals several years ago. I was watching it at Jeff Hartman's house. Sorry, Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman's house. And I got so frustrated because the Steelers used their timeouts with like a minute 20 something left in the first in the first half. And I'm like, my goodness, you are going to score and actually give the Bengals enough time to answer. And they did score, and they left just over a minute because they used their timeouts really early and gave the Bengals. And what happened? It was a long touchdown to Jamar Chase before the half. And the Bengals were the last one to score before the half. It was against them. Those are the things that bother me. To me, when I talk about poor clock management at the end of the half, usually it's giving the ball back to the other team with time left rather than doing that. That's what really bothers me the most. Now, once the Steelers were in field goal range, they had 1 timeout left.
Correct.
Okay. So could they have used that timeout around, I don't know, was it 13 or 14 seconds or so? They maybe could have got it somewhere around there. I'd have to go back and, let's see if I can actually find the play. Yeah, let's see, because they snapped the ball with 19 seconds left and got 14 yards on the play. So you're probably looking at maybe 12 seconds, 12 or 13.
I think
if they called the timeout right away.
Looked like it could have been around 13.
Yeah. But that was their last timeout.
Right. So you're
if you have 2 timeouts, you take that timeout, you go, and you know why? Because the last thing you want to do is throw an interception.
Yep.
And what did Russell Wilson do later in the game to show that he's not going to throw that interception? He'll even take the sack in that situation rather than force something and then make sure you get your 3 points. But in this case, if they get a sack, that's the end of the half. So some people are like, oh, they're letting the clock run down. They could have called the timeout. Well, once you call the timeout, you basically have to go into the end zone or at the sidelines. To me, into the end zone would have been better. And that's all you got.
Well,
that's all you got.
And going to the sidelines doesn't even make any sense at that point because, okay,
what are you
so
going to
the
do?
Steelers line up on the 25 and throw a quick out to the 16 and step out of bounds with 5 seconds to go. Well, you're not running another play to try to get the end zone then.
Yeah.
You're kicking the field goal. At which point in time then it's Boz. Just kick the field goal, 8 yards at that distance is nothing this year for Boz. So just
as long as they block it properly. We'll get into that,
Yeah, we'll talk about that one.
So my thing was the whole goal was to make sure to get the 3. You're thinking get the 3, get the ball coming back out. And that would be a great way to end the half. So even if they would have taken the timeout right away and taken a shot or 2 at the end zone, if nothing's open and Russ throws it out of the back of the end zone for 2 plays, they're still kicking the field goal anyway. To me, chances are they would have had a field goal anyway. There was a small chance they could have got nothing based on an interception or a sack, and a chance that they could have had the touchdown. So was it a little bit conservative? Yes. But at the same time, if you take the timeout right away, you're forcing yourself to have to run the plays. If you've decided, you know what, let's just take the 3, then you wait for that clock to run down to 3 seconds and call the timeout. What would have frustrated me more is if they'd have called the timeout with 10 seconds left or 9 and kicked it and then had to kick off again. That would have frustrated me more. So at least they waited to let it run down. If you want to say it was bad, you could say I'm not going to say it was bad. I'm going to say it could have been better. But there were certain things that they also could have done that really could have screwed it up that they did. They left no time. They held the ball for the last minute and 56 seconds, so I really like that.
All right. Can I ask you a question on this?
Yes.
So as that whole thing was playing out, I also found it interesting. I believe the Steelers in this situation put it in Russ's hands and said, run it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because he just kept stepping up and running plays. There was no spikes.
Yeah.
We weren't spiking the ball or anything like that. It was get to the line quickly, run play. Get to the line quickly, run play. Get to the line quickly, run plays. Which I was okay with.
Yes.
But then at what point, does it get to the point where they're, as folks would like to say, we're letting Russ cook? Well, do we get to the point where we've kind of let Russ cook and he kind of, while he was cooking, kind of ran the clock out on us to where, we kind of got in that, I like to call it that no man's land with that timeout. That's kind of where we ended up. We ended
that's
up in
what it was. You're exactly right.
We ended up in that no man's land with that timeout just based on how things were progressing. And in the end, my first thing was like, we got to at least get a field goal out of this.
Yes.
You got to get points. Got to get points. So in the end, I wasn't that upset. One little piece of me said, well, it would have been nice to at least got a shot at the end zone.
Yep. Honestly, one of the truth.
But
shot at the end zone the play before, and he chose that wasn't there, and he chose to dump it down. It could have been, hey, they're really defending that. That was hard to do it. The decision to go for 3 might not have been when it was not taking the timeout or anything with 13 or 12 seconds left. The decision to go for 3 probably came at the moment he checked it down to Jaylen Warren. That's when the decision was made.
Very possible. Yes.
Because at that moment, we only have one timeout left. We're going to have to use it for the field goal. If I throw this short pass, then we're just taking the field goal. you got to know that in that moment. So I'm
Potentially, yeah.
fine. I'm fine with it. Would I've liked a touchdown? Absolutely. Am I going to complain about it? No. Would I go as far to put that on the losers list? Heck no. Heck no. That was not that big of a deal in my opinion.
No, and if anything, I like the fact that they got points, and as the points were scored, they walked to the locker room.
Yeah.
So,
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. So, and they walked to the locker room.
Walked to the locker room up 6, knowing you're getting the ball coming out of the half.
Dude, they put up 20 points in the second quarter.
Yeah, it was pretty.
In one quarter. Now, granted, part of that was because the first play of the second quarter was a touchdown. So you could have said it was 14 in the first and 13. I mean, it was really close. But they put up more points in the second quarter than they have in how many games this season?
A lot.
Yeah. I'm going back to look. Let's see. Games they did not score 20 points. Against the Falcons, against the Broncos. They hit 20 points against the Chargers exactly. Against the Cowboys, okay? Against the Ravens, against the Browns. Those are all games they scored 20 points or less in the whole game. And they had 20 points in the second quarter. And we want to talk about why they didn't have 24, which I get it. It still makes sense in that moment that you might have had a play or two that you left on the field. But you also made sure you didn't, my goodness, look at what happened at the end of the half in the first game against the Ratbirds last year. They were down in the red zone and didn't even get the field goal attempt. So maybe that's living in your fears. Maybe that's saying, hey, we're mission accomplished. We're good to go. That's why I can see how it could be better. We probably beat this enough. So I can see how it could be better, but hey, it was still a nice job. But then they come out to start the second half. And once again, they're moving. They're moving the ball. They're doing their thing. That was not good. The blocking on that field goal.
No, that was not good.
Was it? Who was it? Was it Loudermilk? I don't want to blame someone who wasn't.
Loudermilk looked like he got knocked to the ground.
Yep.
And Broderick Jones whiffed.
Okay, Broderick Jones whiffed. That makes sense because
Broderick Jones blocked nobody.
I've only been watching highlights, not lowlights. This game.
Yeah, it was Loudermilk got knocked to the ground by multiple guys, and Broderick Jones didn't look like he got his hands on anybody.
And that's probably why Broderick Jones had a 26.3 special team score for the game.
Probably, yes.
That would make sense. That would make sense. So that was for PFF scores, just not like it's a big deal or not, but still, that does make a lot of sense. But other than that,
hey, by the way,
Broderick Jones had a really great game.
Yes. Hey, I want to go back and hit one thing where you were talking about, the 20-point second quarter. I do know the Steelers, yes, they did score on that first play of the second quarter, but it was from 23 yards. It's not like you're expecting the Steelers to just in one play from 23 yards out and nail a touchdown.
It's like they came out of the break and said, let's take a shot. Right?
Hey, look at that. It worked.
Yeah.
So, all right.
And I mean,
yes. So we get back. The block field goal was
that was on 2nd and 8 from the 23.
Yes.
And that one was pretty. That was pretty. Sorry. the one to Freiermuth. We had been complaining about. Well, I say we. People. The live chat and stuff.
The live chat. Other guys on SCN, a lot of people
about
have
the receivers not finding a good spot whenever Russ has to scramble. That was not a problem this week, was it? Russ was finding the running backs or short passes a lot, and then he had that one. That was pretty nice.
Makes me think that was worked on in practice, telling guys, when he breaks contain, you can't think you're open and just stand there.
Yeah.
You must move into the open spots in the zones.
I wish that I could have seen Russ's eyes on that play. I talked about it in the post-game show because Mike Williams had settled down in the right in the zone beater spot. He was about 20 yards downfield, right on the sideline, behind the short coverage, in front of the deep coverage, right there. And if you looked, it almost seemed like all those defenders were a little stepping that way as Russ was rolling out, and it just left it open. I still think he had Mike Williams. I think he had Mike Williams for a nice completion.
But that ends up being a
touchdown.
That ends up being, as he breaks, if you notice what Freiermuth did, he noticed that his hole was to actually go slightly deeper to get behind the zone, which is what he did.
Into the right spot.
Yeah. And slid further, towards the end zone, created the space between him and the defender, got the ball, almost seemed surprised when he turned around and thought, holy cow, nobody's going to hit me.
Yeah, he was right in that spot. And I'll say this too about the toss to Najee Harris, the 10-yard run.
Yeah.
As soon as when he got that ball, as soon as he cut upfield, I know it was a touchdown. I could just see it.
Yeah. Well, Kyle and I were noticing something. Okay. So if anybody out there reads my knee-jerk reactions articles, Kyle and I give a really bad time to all the toss plays. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's not that we don't like the toss plays. The toss sweeps go nowhere. They run one that almost looks like a toss counter.
Yeah.
Or, well, two. One is a toss counter.
And it's coming, yeah.
Yeah. There's one that's a toss almost counter, and there's another one that I call it the short toss. It's the toss and directly off tackle.
Yeah, it's almost like he's popping it. It's not like he's throwing it a long distance to get it
Correct.
to him.
That's
the sweep.
Right.
from my coaches. It's almost like I'm doing the motion, but I'm actually, or you think it's going wide, but I'm actually popping it to him right here where he's coming not as far wide.
And he's getting moving forward earlier rather than just down the line. The toss sweeps trying to get around the end are they're brutal.
Yeah.
They're brutal. I think, we're lucky to gain positive yardage on 10% of them.
Yeah,
those other two,
it's basically like a stretch play. Yeah,
I call it the short toss and the counter toss. That's kind of what I call them. Yeah. Both those plays when we're doing them, love them both.
Yeah,
love them both. And often I wonder if the one that I'm calling the counter toss isn't just to be one of the short tosses where Najee or whoever just reads the line quickly and realizes the best lane is cut back.
Yep.
But it looks almost like a counter.
Yep. Hey, we're not going to stop talking about this, but we are going to go ahead and take a break. Got a super chat to hit up when we come back. So if you're with us, we got more than one now. If you're with us here on any of the live channels, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on the audio, we'll be right back after this break.
Relax, don't worry. Relax, don't worry. Don't worry. Relax, don't worry. No rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry. Don't worry. Relax.
All right, Rich, we got to relax. We got to keep rolling on with this big, I keep messing up the score, 44-38 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, and a big week coming up against the Cleveland Browns. But first, let's hit some of the super chats. I don't know that we've ever had one like this before, bro. This was $50 into the tip jar. I don't think we've ever had that on this show. From Ralph Fashion. Thank you so much, Ralph. He says, guys, thanks for all your videos. Thoughts and prayers to you and your family. Really appreciate that. I know I saw someone in the live chat earlier say, I'm surprised you guys did the show. You know what? We kind of need this. We kind of need this.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
So now moving on to some more Steeler stuff. We got outside Steeler fan says, I like the fact Russ distributed the ball well to multiple receivers, but none to Mike Williams. And then just kind of throwing the hands up.
The shrugs,
the hands in the air, whatever it is. All right. Here we go. That one. Let's talk Mike Williams. I loved Coach Tallman's answer about him today. He's like, he's coming along. He's getting there. And it'll come. I also like Bob Labriola's response to multiple things when his asked and answered column, which came out today, Tuesday. And he's like, the problem is Steelers fans thought Williams was coming in to be their answer and like their bona fide number 2. He was only a depth piece with the Jets. You shouldn't have expected him to be anything more than a depth piece in Pittsburgh. If he was, great. And he's there if they have to call on him. That's what I was saying when the Steelers made the move. I think you said it. I know Jeff and Brian, we had talked about it, that this was, if nothing more, this is if someone goes down, you have someone else there to go. That's great. But if you're not using Mike Williams yet, why tip your hand at how you're going to use him at all? I'm just putting that out there. If he's not going to be a big part of the game plan. Now, so he's not. They just scored 44 points. Honestly, I don't care that Mike Williams didn't have a target. I don't. They just won another AFC North game and they put up 44 points doing it. Now, what's going to get frustrating is if the receivers are struggling and he's still nowhere to be found within the offense. That's a problem. But you know what? We don't need to manufacture a problem offensively from this past week that wasn't a problem. It's not a problem. And we'll see how it is moving forward. What do you think about Mike?
I'm not worrying about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine what it's like changing teams in the middle of a season.
Oh, yeah.
For players. I mean, that's got to be difficult. Because you're coming in, you got to learn a whole new play scheme. You potentially, for some of the receivers, you'll learn a whole new route tree, verbiage, and you got to get all that stuff down. It's no different than we talk about, when suddenly, your number one QB is down and, or I think several years ago, suddenly we got Doug Hodges coming in the game and they had to scale everything back.
Yeah.
You just had to, think about that from the wide receiver perspective is that, he probably does not have the whole playbook yet.
Yeah. I agree.
Now, but as Coach Tom is saying, he's coming along. They're starting to see that he's getting more and more. As he gets more and more of that playbook, then he becomes a much more dangerous player.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring this up. Mark Tobin put this out there. He's like, so we just ignore that Pickens is a problem. What if he gets ejected or suspended? Then what? I'll be honest with you. I was half bracing for Pickens to be suspended for this past game. Then when that second flag comes in, I was expecting him to be ejected. I didn't see what he had done. So therefore, it made sense that he wasn't when they finally made the call. But that's a good point. That could be a big problem in a bad spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm glad if it's going to be a problem, it was a problem in a game that the Steelers were able to win otherwise. I'm a little bit nervous with this week because of how things happened the last week with this opponent to see how he's going to handle himself. So maybe this week isn't even the right week to take the wrapper off Mike Williams, because that might be if something happens where you're -1 number 14, you need him to slide right in there and say, all right, I'm going to do what he does. Meaning run the routes. I mean, I don't know if he's going to do what he does. Meaning run the routes, line up, and do those things in that spot. So how concerned are you with George Pickens?
I don't know how concerned I am. I mean, I agree with Coach Tomlin. He's got to grow up. He's got to get more mature. I mean, I put it in the knee jerk article, and some people found it absolutely hilarious. You know, because when Kyle says, "Oh, there's a site," when Broderick Jones is the one trying to talk sense into George Pickens.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because how many times has somebody else had to talk sense into Broderick Jones?
right. So
Yeah.
so
Well, I'm going to say it again.
Now-
Outside of that block field goal, he had a pretty nice game. Broderick Jones.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I saw something late in the game that I really, really, really liked. Might even been sidelined after the game. Something I really, really, really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Cam Hayward with his arm around George Pickens and talking to him.
Yeah.
I think I even said something to Kyle on that, saying, that's what I want to see. You know. And knowing Cam, he probably didn't say a whole lot. I'm guessing it was just, nuggets of information for George Pickens there, and hoping to see that some of the guys on the team like that, like Broderick Jones, like Cam Hayward, like some of those guys, getting George Pickens and just saying, hey, I like that George Pickens is edgy, okay? But you got to stay,
You can push it
or maybe
to
I
the
should say,
edge.
no. Hold on. I'm going to rephrase that. George Pickens is ledgy.
Ledgy. Yeah.
He goes right to the very ledge. Okay. It's nice to see some of the guys that are trying to make sure he stays on the correct side of that ledge. If they do
Because
that,
the other team is trying to push him.
correct. So if things can get right, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Hoping very much that George Pickens is A, still young enough, and B, around some of the right guys, that he gets it figured out. See, the problem we ran into with Mr. Third and the Fifth was by the time we as fans were seeing that everything was starting to go haywire with him, he was too much of a vet on the team to be able for anybody to get him changed, do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Lost,
Yeah.
he was done. Lost cause at that point. Get the third and the fifth and be happy with it.
I blame Mike Wallace. He didn't bring it. He didn't
Yeah.
lead him in the right direction when he was young. That was the young money crew, stuff like that. Anyway, I got to bring this up from Steel Dog 88. He's like, with Bro Joe talking to Pickens, I think shows the message from Tomlin got to Bro Joe, that's Broderick Jones, from earlier. So that, in other words, he's saying, hey, he's been there. He knows the frustrations, but I've learned that there's got to be more to it. So that's, even in this win, there were some concerns. You got to say George Pickens. The problem is the tape's out there. Teams know they can get to him. So guess what?
He's got to get past.
You've got to
it.
play through it now. You've got to get past it. You've got to say. And Gab wants to know, didn't we trade? We didn't trade Wallace.
No, we chose to pay AB instead of Wallace.
They offered the contract to Wallace. He turned it down.
So they offered it to
gave
AB.
the exact same contract to AB, and Wallace walked. That's how it worked out. So he had to be around long enough to actually be allowed to be signed to a second deal. So I can't remember exactly what it is. And we got to address the other issue. Are you concerned, like many Steelers fans, about Joey Porter Jr.?
There's a concern there, but it's a very different kind of concern.
Yeah.
His is just everything about with his just play and technique on the field. His stuff to me is all very coachable, workable on practice to work on things. This,
Yeah.
I do worry a little bit that teams are seeing like George Pickens if they can get in his head a little bit. And I think if they get in his head a little bit, then the way he tends to fight back at that draws a lot of hankies. So,
Well, he's a physical defender that will fight physicality with physicality, and it really depends on honestly, it's going to depend week to week on your officiating crew.
yeah.
How much are they going to let the defenders fight back or not? And Coach Tom had a great quote today about it. He was saying, but part of this was based on the matchup. He's like, you all saw T. Higgins. You all saw his strength in that touchdown that he caught as Cam Sutton was all over him, and it didn't matter. He just muscled that in there. You have to admit that one was pretty impressive. But Coach Tomlin says, if you're going up against Shaq, you got to use all your fouls.
Yep. I heard that was another one I heard today. I told you I was just hearing tidbits.
And I'm like,
Tomlin's, that was one that I'd heard too.
but here's what I'm also saying. Yes, did he give up? It was like 57 yards in penalties and the 4 accepted ones. And I know some people are like, how in the world do you get a holding and pass interference in the same play? It's very simple. He held him early and interfered late. That's how.
Oh, and anybody to think that that's the first time that's happened? Yeah, no, not even close.
I thought the holding was a little bit weak. I got the pass interference penalty. The
pass interference penalty was obvious.
Yeah.
The hold was ticky tack.
The one that ticked me off was the one that was obviously pass interference in the end zone on was it Yoshavash or however you say his last name? That's you say it different than how it's spelled. Because I argue that ball was not catchable. It landed way out of the end zone. And my goodness, if they're going to pick up the flag and said, oh, the quarterback was out of the pocket, so the defense can hold. I'm like, at what point do you realize that he's out of the pocket? To me, I don't think they had the timing of that right. I don't think when they threw the flag versus where he was out of the pocket yet. And my thing is how could you tell? So that's what I don't understand with that. Unless it's obvious, like when the quarterback is back there running around scrambling for 6 to 8 seconds, like Lamar Jackson, and he's out of the pocket, and he's been out of the pocket, and then you see a hold. That's a whole different story. That's more what that rule's for, not for the way that they wave that one off in the game. So getting that call in that manner and having that one where. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. was just afraid that, he didn't want to give up the touchdown, so he would have rather interfered with him to fight from the 1 yard line than give up an obvious touchdown. The problem was the throw was so off, he didn't have to do it. And if that's the case, then it's not supposed to be a penalty. But it is kind of what it is. I will say this. This was the first time that T. Higgins was held to under 110 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In any game he's played against them. He had 69 yards. So you're talking he was held to more than 40 yards less than he had against the Steelers in any of the games. And I mean, like he put up 175, I think the last time he played against the Steelers.
Yeah.
So he's been a Steelers killer. And he wasn't. It wasn't like he was taken completely out of the game. And he even had a touchdown, and he had and a 31-yard catch and things of that nature. You didn't shut him out, but you definitely slowed him down relatively to what he has done against the Steelers in the past. So sometimes you got to take it for what it is. Anything else you want to say about this game before we quickly talk about next week?
Time to shift gears. Let's move on.
Yes. We got to move on because we got a big one. I'm going to ask you flat up. Do you think this is one where the Steelers really feel like they have some retribution against this team?
Yeah, they need to get some payback.
Yeah.
This would be one where they would, if they could, if they got to point, sometimes you say, oh, Mike Tom gets out, gets a decent lead, gets comfortable. He's not one to try to run up the score. They'd maybe try to run the score up this time.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity. So, yeah. Time to go make the Browns pay.
Yeah. And loved the trenches from this last game. I did. And that was my key to the game. I talked about it on the Last Minute Thoughts podcast because of everything going on with our family. Jeff wrote that up for me in our X Factor article. I really appreciate him doing that. He's like, hey, I listened to your podcast and wrote your stuff in for you, so you're good. But I felt on both sides of the ball, the trenches, they needed to win that against Cincinnati. I felt the offensive line did a much better job. I felt that the defensive line actually was quite solid in this game. Yeah, they had a couple of the running issues early, but my goodness, in the second half, the Bengals didn't. They averaged 2 yards a carry and then just stopped because they're like, oh wait, now the Steelers are actually going to make sure that we can't run it. So we've got to get back in it. They got it handed to them in the trenches on that short week in Cleveland. If you want to come out and dominate this game against this opponent, you've got to win in the trenches. Your offensive line is set. That's the group. If you want to talk, whether you call them the big uglies or the nasty guys or whatever, that's the group that they need to look at this and saying, oh no, this is going to be different. If you can get that.
Oh, there's two groups. Two groups.
Okay.
Okay. That is one.
Mm-hmm.
The other group that I feel is going to feel they need a little retribution in this game would be the Steelers edge rushers.
Yes.
that would be the second one.
Especially with a full complement of them.
Yes. Would like to have the full complement of 4 and would like to see those guys get together and say, we got to make up for the last game we played against them. Time for us to go make Jameis Winston's life miserable.
Yeah.
Make him wish he was eating some crab legs.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like Jameis Winston being on the Browns because I don't, you know what, he can be a likable dude, but not when he's wearing that uniform. The only thing worse than that is wearing purple.
Yeah.
So, and no offense to the Minnesota Vikings, but this is one that they really need to come back and just show, hey, that was short week in Cleveland. You know what? Take pride in this, Pittsburgh Steelers, and say, we have to prove one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman wrong. It had everything to do with the short week traveling to Cleveland. You give us our regular week, we're going to make these Browns turn brown in their pants.
Yeah.
All right? They're not going to know what hit them. Let's just take care of it. So, are you?
Hey, you know,
before your score, go ahead.
I do like this. Okay, so the Steelers regular week, and get it as a home game.
Yeah.
Okay, the Browns one less day.
Yeah, they had to travel back from Denver.
Yep, back from Denver,
and now they have
last night.
Now they have to get on a bus.
Yep.
Let them get on the bus.
So, little bit of your turn. So now let's make them pay.
Yes, and I think the Steelers are favored by like 6.5 or something right now. We'll see. But honestly, I will tell you this: the one thing that's a little bit scary is that Denver Broncos got a pretty good defense, and that connection of Winston and Judy can be scary.
It looked the same as it did against the Steelers. I expect to see something different from the Steelers to
Yep.
combat that this
Yes,
week.
I agree. So, because that's really what you have to look at in this game. And other than that, go get it done. Rich, anything else you want to say before you give us your score?
Hey, live chat, throw it out there. Anybody else going to the game Sunday?
Yes.
Because I will be there with hashtag Pay Kyle.
Yes.
We are going and will be in attendance. And looks like we're to actually have decent weather.
Decent. What now? You're not going to have as fabulous as weather as what we had against the Ravens,
No.
but you're going to have some pretty good weather. You're supposed to have some pretty good weather as well.
Yeah, going to be close to 50 degrees, sunny.
Yeah.
That's pretty good for December in Pittsburgh.
December in Pittsburgh. Yeah. If you'd have told me that, I'd be like, I'll go to that game. Yeah. So that one looks pretty good. So hey, just some people probably, if they are going, we might have to hit it later. They might have already typed in their score and is waiting to hit enter because, as they know, you're supposed to wait until I actually say to put your scores out there, and then we will read that off. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, so I like this because I noticed this during the game last night. Brian Brown, Levi Wallace is on that defense, meaning Denver's, and he didn't look so great.
No, and it's funny. I can't remember who it was.
He was burned bad twice. Once went incomplete to Judy, and the other one was the 70-yard bomb.
Yeah.
Where he just wasn't even close to it.
And it was somebody who covers this. I couldn't remember. It might have been Dale Lally that said it. It was out there on X. It said, now you see why the Steelers went out and added a number 2 cornerback this past offseason.
Yep.
Now, you have to admit, Denver has maybe arguably the best cornerback in the league. But if you only have one, that's only half the battle.
That's only half the battle.
All right, Rich. I know people were waiting. I'm sure they've got their score typed in, ready to go. So what do you got?
Here comes my score, ready to go. Big game for the Steelers. Need to pull out a win here. Cannot lose 2 to the Browns. That would just be awful. Coming off the big game against Cincy, I think Coach Tomlin will do what he needs to do to have the team ready to roll. They are fairly healthy. I expect this one to be pretty much closer to what we think of AFC North football. This is not going to be the same kind of slugfest we just saw. It's going to be the in-between game. It's not going to be the Baltimore game. It's not going to be the Cincinnati game. It's going to be somewhere in between. And I'm going to go with the Steelers 26 and the Browns 21.
Okay. That's not bad. Now, remember, some people are like, the trap game. I don't believe in trap games when it comes to the AFC North, especially when you're the road team on a Thursday. That's not a trap game. That's a up against it really bad game. They just lost this team. There is no way that they could it couldn't be a letdown after a big AFC North win. That's not happening. I'll give my score on Thursday, but I will tell you that I'm picking the Steelers to win this one. I thought I hit enter and it hasn't went yet. Is it going now finally that I'm saying
there it
scores? There it went. My goodness, I had to hit it probably 3 times before it actually worked. So the scores are out there, and they are flying in. People were obviously waiting. Who wins it? Who got the first one in there? That would be Sean Manahan. He has 34-13 Steelers. Thomas Riley, you got to do it for us. Thank you, Thomas. Browns 19, Steelers 19. You got to keep the trend. Thank you. Kathy Ford has 33-20 Steelers. Afton Ford has 24-18 Steelers. Steel Dog 88, 27-13 Steelers. Valley Ford, 31-17 Steelers. That's very interesting, Valley. Tune in Thursday. Mark Tobin, Steelers 27-16. Brian Brown has 37-21 Steelers. It's time for a Minka pick 6. I see it, but honestly, people that are really all down on Minkah Fitzpatrick and everything, you're not watching what the dude is doing for the defense and everything. It's not what people. It's not everyone. It's not what some fans believe. Some people are like, he's just garbage. No, he's having he's having a way better season than last year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just that you're not getting those splash plays because what do you know? Defenders see a guy that has a lot of interceptions and they don't want to throw the ball his way. So, which is tough, but eventually he's going to get an opportunity and he's going to make somebody pay. It would be great if it was the Browns. Thomas Eads has Steelers 28, Browns 13. Gavin Anthony has Steelers 27-17. Harvey Stone's got the Steelers winning 35-3. Oh, I love it, Harvey. I really do. John Walter says, it's a trap. 34-20 Steelers. Reginald Rivers has 31-19 Steelers. Sherry Richards has 29-20 Steelers. George T has 31-16 Steelers with a nice, I'm going to say that's a smiley face. Mean Green says 31-13 are Pittsburgh Steelers. Tom Dessenberger has 28-23 Steelers. Was that your score? 28-23?
26-21.
Oh, you said 26-21. I knew it was 5 points. That's why when I saw, and it was both of the 20s. That's why I couldn't remember. Here we go. Marky D, Steelers Nation Australia. Steelers 36, Browns 13. That's
G'day,
the kind
Marky
of game.
D.
And I'd say, hey, and you know what? The Steelers got they've got the A game announcers. They've got Nance and Romo this week, which is surprised that anything with the Browns could have an A game. But it is what it is. Ruben Stone has 33-12 Steelers. We rolling. Okay. Let's see. I think that's all the scores now. If another one floats in, we will get it. I tell you, here we go. Outside Steeler fan has Good Guys 28-10. And that the game is going to be worse than the score shows. So, all right. Sorry, I had to make sure because I know sometimes we get it later from Sherry that we had hers. But yeah, I got hers in there. I had to make sure. All right. Well, hey, this is the first true normal week that the Steelers have had in a while. I mean, yes, they had one from between Washington and Baltimore, but that was Ravens week, which does make it a little bit different. Other than that, they've been off schedule. I like it that they're on schedule this week. Let's get back on schedule, back to playing football games at Sunday 1 p.m. when God intended them to be played. And all, yep. and since I'm going to be the one doing the knee-jerk reactions this week, since Rich will be at the game. And I'm just ready to get back to it. And we've got our regular podcast lineup coming at you because we haven't had to tweak anything because of a weird schedule with the Steelers. So you should have all that. And make sure you're checking out SteelCurdNetwork.com for all your other Steelers needs. I still wish I could get a date of when the facelift is coming. But I think the day the site went down might have caused some other things that we have to take care of before we can do it. I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating when you're told something's going to be coming and then you have to wait. It's like Christmas. Come on, let's just get it. Actually, that was when you're a kid. Now I love the whole season rather than that. You know, I don't want to rush it. I want to take it all in for what we can. Well, Rich, it was a good show. It was good to focus on Steeler stuff. What do you want to say here to close us out tonight?
Come on, Steelers. We are not going to lose to the Browns. Not going to do it. And I'm going to be doing everything I can to make sure that it goes the Steelers' way. I'm going to be in stadium. I've had a pretty good record in stadium. Kyle of late has had a very good record in stadium. He started out rough there for a while. And now he's got things going his way. That's right. So he and I are going to be there to do what we can to cheer the Steelers on. Would love to have it go for the Steelers like it did last year when my daughter and I were at the Steelers-Browns game and just open up the game with a Steelers pick six. So, that would be awesome. But in the end, I don't care. Let's just make sure we bring home the W. Steelers, I've said it a couple times, they're fairly healthy. They got their guys there. They seem to. I really felt the other day, especially offensively, the play calling got into a great flow.
Yeah.
Russ was in a nice rhythm, especially in the second half. The defense really started getting, the defense made just enough splash plays for things to matter. It's the same kind of thing I expect to see the Steelers do this week, with it being AFC North football. I won't be sitting on my couch on Sunday at 1 o'clock when God intended football to be played. I'm going to be sitting in a much better space in the stadium with my son there to watch the Steelers put a whooping on the Browns. Can't wait.
Relax. You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.